Good morning. Thank you for coming to a little ceremony that we have at town. This morning I was at Port Jeff, and then I was at Patchogue, and tonight I will be at Center Moriches and Bellport. Today is a day that we remember with great grief and sadness what happened to some 3,000 Americans at the Pentagon in Pennsylvania, in our own hometown of New York. It's a day where more people were killed than that were killed at Pearl Harbor. It is a day that we remember because we are Americans and we are connected to all other Americans. I was on YouTube last night and I saw an interesting video put together by Tom Hanks. That day was a day of sheer terror and panic for people in downtown New York. All they wanted to do was get out of Manhattan. But the bridges and the tunnels and the subway and the trains were all shut down. The video showed that day uncoordinated, but connected to fellow Americans, all boats in New York Harbor, private and public, raced to southern Manhattan to help evacuate people from that island. And that day, in 8 hours, over 500,000 Americans were removed from southern Manhattan. It was the largest amphibious movement in the history of the world. Prior to that, Dunkirk, which was in World War II, they evacuated about 300,000 over 4 days. We did 500,000 in 8 hours, uncoordinated. Why? Because Americans are connected to one another, and in times of danger, in times of trouble, in times of need, they will reach out and help one another. So today, we remember that day. We remember the lives. We remember the hurt that we all felt as Americans and the connection we felt as Americans and the pride that we felt for our firefighters and our policemen and for all of us who worked to help to save lives that day. It is the worst and yet the best of what this country has to offer in terms of its citizen response. I'm going to let Chris Merhrman, our Chief Fire Marshal, explain why he will ring this bell 5 times. Chris?
The ringing of the bell has a long history in the fire service. In the early days, it was used to call the volunteer firefighters in this country to duty. When a fire was occurring, there would be a ringing of a bell, and store owners and husbands and shopkeepers and farmers would come to the aid of their neighbors. Later on, it was used in firehouses when the firefighters were actually staying in the firehouses, bunking there, and it would alert from headquarters saying that there's a fire, and the number of bells would tell you what kind and where it was. And then the bell would also sound when it was time to return to quarters. So symbolically, we ring the bell each year during this ceremony, calling the emergency responders back to station, back to home, the emergency responders that we lost, the firefighters, the police officers, the EMS, and we also call home the citizens, the people of New York, the people in Pennsylvania on the aircraft, and the people in the Pentagon who lost their lives that day. So again, we ring the bell calling them home in remembrance of all of them. We will never forget.
Thank you, Chris. I know we're gathered here today. As your day goes along, first of all, thank you very much for coming. And secondly, as your day goes along, I would ask you to offer up a silent prayer for those who died and their families on this very dark day in American history. I want to thank Chris. I want to thank our council people that showed up, Councilwoman Jane Bonner, Councilwoman Valerie Cartwright, Councilman Kevin Laval, Councilman Dan Panico, and of course our town clerk. So we want to thank them for showing up here. I want to thank all of you, because by our presence, we recount the fact. We will always remember. We will not forget. God bless you. God bless the town of Brookhaven. And most of all, God bless the United States of America. Thank you for showing up.